1971, I knew nothing about New Orleans music. I had been here 2 years in the city, and I was working on Spanish music, and I was planning to go to Spain for a summer. And I was at a meeting in New York where the leading Spanish-American scholar, Robert Stevenson, was, and I asked him if could he give me some hints where to go in Spain. He looked at me and said, "Why are you going to Europe when you're sitting in the most important city for music in America?" And I said, "Well, that's very nice. I'm not into jazz particularly. That's not my thing." He looked at me and said, "Look at Chopin's Opus 7 Mazurkas, dedicated to Monsieur Jean de Nouveau Orleans, to Mr. Johns of New Orleans." He said, "Who is that guy?" So I started doing research. That is 71, 72. I started doing research on Johns. I won't tell you who he is. You have to read the book. So I went back and started with the newspapers and tried to cover every newspaper for the years 1800 to 1897. Fortunately, in the 19th century, they published the programs of every concert in advance of the concert in the newspaper so people could decide if they wanted to go. The #1 city for opera in America in the 19th century is New Orleans. But there's also discovered symphony orchestras, concert seasons, chamber music, solo recitals. Famous artists from all over the world would come to New Orleans, many times skipping New York or skipping other big cities at that time. Typical was Anton Rubinstein, who was in the 1870s one of Europe's 2 or 3 greatest pianists. When he traveled all over America in 1872-73, he was met by crowds everywhere. But when he came to New Orleans, he wrote back to his mother in Russia, "I have finally reached a musical city. I have finally reached a cultivated, cultured place." It began in the end of the 18th century with the arrival of the Haitians, Santo Domingo, and they brought with them their taste for European music and theater. And by 1796 there was the first opera, and following that you can see a steady rise, traced in my book of course, until the late 1830s when the city finally had reached a status, and all along the way no other city in America could rival New Orleans.